Of course, first buyer can buy, as low as 1,000, 4,500 per square foot.
Yes.
But some people paid up to 2,000 per square foot just on the same day.
Yeah, it was crazy. So within the same day, the developer actually increased the price by 600 per square foot. And I remember I brought a buyer down to queue at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And then I had to tell her that, look, the price is now 2,000 PSF compared to the start of the day, which was much lower. And we decided to just walk away.
Hey guys.
Yes, today we're going to talk about, can you only buy sell-out launches? I think recently we have seen projects that have done tremendously well.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say. Yeah, so for example, recently we have River Modern already crossed 90%. And I think recently the hype over the second half, Q4 of last year, we had like a series of launches that also did really well. So today we want to address this. Can you only buy launches that really sell on launch day? Can you still even make money or have decent gains if you are looking at projects that take longer to sell?
Yeah, because towards the end of the year, there were actually projects that also didn't sell too well. Didn't really make such headlines. Touch on that later.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at some of the things that we have seen in the past and we'll make a judgment call after that. Recently, we have seen, I think if you're in the market, not sure if you managed to get a unit, but if yes, congratulations. If not, then we understand why as well. We have seen like Emerald of Katong that was in end of 2024, hitting 99% sold on launch day, the first day.
Yeah.
And then we also have Sky at Holland. Also, I think now left maybe like last one or two
last
units.
One unit only. Yesterday, one of the 5 units sold already.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So this was only last year around fourth quarter.
And then River Modern as well.
River Modern was just very recently, only 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 90%. So it clearly shows that there's market demand and interest for the smaller unit types to even the biggest unit type like the 4 and 5 bedrooms. It's just a matter of projects and choices that why people go for certain projects, right? We'll talk about that shortly. Firstly, we'll address why some of these projects sold really well on launch. I think for one, majority of them have attractive land bid prices.
Yes, this is one example. So the most recent one was Sky at Holland. This one was the one that sold extremely well because the main Holland Village Central, right, firstly doesn't really have that many land plots to begin with. And of course, a few years ago, 2018, we had One Holland Village. The land plot actually was won by FI's organization. Yeah. So this is one really good example because Sky at Holland, if you're not familiar, right, last year, fourth quarter thereabouts, this is the one that sold more than around 99% on the first day. And why it sold so well is because in general, the Holland Village central area doesn't really have many land plots. And of course, FI took the first one, which was at now currently One Holland Village.
It's just right beside Sky at Holland, by the way.
Yeah, they bought the land at 1,002, but of course, because it's a mixed development and all these other add-ons the developer has to do, right? Their break-even price was at 2,600 per square foot. So in the end, they also sold units 2,009, 3,000 and above PSF thereabouts. So then we had Sky at Holland, the plot next door launch. Many people were surprised because the land bid at 1,285 per square foot, right, was relatively decent compared to like the other plots in River Valley also.
Yes, correct. I think for One Holland Village, people are already paying 1,002 plus in 2018, and then UOL came and bid for this land in 2024. That is like 6 years later, but just at a slightly higher PSF. So you're potentially buying back into 2018's land price kind of pricing. So I think a lot of people were anticipating the launch for this. Then if we compare this, if you look at why Sky did well also is because subsequently the plots at Dunyan Road and also Holland Link was sold July and August 2025. So after Sky was sold. If you look at Dunyan Road, is also within the same district as Sky at Holland, but it's closer towards the 6th Avenue MRT, that side. Yeah. And for that, the highest bid was actually 1,410. So it was not much, but it was higher than Sky at Holland.
Around $160 per square foot more.
Yes, correct. And then we also have Holland Link, although it's in District 21, it's also in a very central location that a lot of people love, very close to Methodist Girls' School as well. This is actually not near any amenities and also quite a walking distance away from like the MRT. So that was one at 1,432 PSF per plot ratio, which is almost 200 PSF higher than Sky at Holland as well.
So effectively, when people were visiting the Sky at Holland show flat, these bids were already public information.
Yes, correct.
To a buyer, right? Would I want to buy Sky at Holland next to Holland Village MRT, or at this price, or buy potentially around 5% minimally higher? I can buy Holland Link, not near MRT, not near anything much, at a higher price, or even the land plot opposite Dunyan Road as well.
I mean, for sure, there could be potentially people who love like 6th Avenue more. I don't know, but
but still the price is still higher.
Yeah, in terms of pricing wise, then you're gonna expect something that's higher when it launches which is somewhere down towards end of this year, maybe.
Probably thereabouts.
Yeah, we did a comparison slide, so you can see this is the land price for Holland Village residences, which is 1213. Then we have Sky at Holland, which is 1285. And then subsequently, we have Dunyan Road and also Holland Link. So we can expect those launch prices to be higher than Sky at Holland, which is also why, if you look back, Sky at Holland is actually a very good...
It's a good buy.
It's a good buy, yeah, for sure. So next, we talk about timing. I think timing plays a very important role in terms of the launches and developers these days, especially in Singapore. Some people overseas, they don't understand like what is this craziness. Yeah, but been a huge hype. And I think, when developers start announcing that they're going to launch, for example, their project, then subsequently a few other developers also jump on the bandwagon.
Yep.
And they also want to launch their launches concurrently.
Yes. So that's why we were very busy in the third and fourth quarter last year. Sky at Holland launched, and then Penrith wanted to launch a week later.
Together with Faber as well.
Together with Faber. And then Zion Grand also sold about a few weeks later. So this all happened at once. So the hype all came together.
Yes.
If you couldn't get a unit at Sky Holland, you
FOMO.
try Penrith.
Yes.
You cannot get a unit at Penrith or even Faber on a day, then you go and try Zion Grand.
Yeah, so I think a lot of buyers were also putting multiple checks in all the different launches just to have a chance to see their queue number and whether they can get a good unit or not. I guess it's also FOMO, it's a very Singaporean thing. Like if you can't get the first one, then you continue to try the next one. And then if you can't get the next one, you continue to try again. So I guess the whole thing was very hyped up in general. That's why you can see, even after Sky, Penrith 97% sold on launch day and Faber 86%. Then Zion Grand also 84% sold on launch day. So they all fared extremely well after the launch of Sky. And I think if we scroll back to not too long ago, also the period where Emerald of Katong,
Nava Grove.
Nava Grove, yes.
Yeah, these are the range. And there's also an EC launching then. But those are the 4 launches that happened within that 2 to 3 week time period.
Yeah, I remember for Trump Park, the developer out of nowhere decided to announce their preview on a Thursday, which was Deepavali.
Yes.
And because they were competing with EOK as well as Nava Grove, so I think they just wanted to be the first to capture the market share.
Yeah.
And for that, some of us, we have to make plan changes, going on holiday. Suddenly we decided to cut short and, cancel our trip just to make it in time for the launch as well. Yeah. For timing wise, we also have seen scenarios, for example, like the announcement of cooling measures back in those days.
Yeah. This one on the left was the one in 2018. That's when the government actually announced decrease in loan to value from 80 to 75%. And they also raised stamp duties, ABSD, by 5%. Yeah, from 7 to 12%. Yeah. So this is actually the show flats of the 3 projects. They were actually Sterling Residences, Park Colonial and Riverfront Residences. Those are the 3 projects that decided 2 p.m. when they announced thereabouts, they announced they were going to launch that same night.
Previously, you had time to react to the announcement of the cooling measures. Nowadays, they are very smart. So they just announce with effect from midnight. So you have no time to react.
Exactly.
I think, Ollie, you were there at the show flat.
I was at Park Colonial.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Park Colonial was nuts. The people standing on the podium shouting at the developer, why it's not their turn yet. But anyway, that's just something that happens in very heated environments.
Yeah, then, so you can see, you can see from the photo also, this was the queue, and you see it was all dark. It was pitch darkness. So it was, you can look back and laugh. It's what a funny sight, right? But then people were queuing until 2 a.m. to buy houses. Yeah.
So there was also Pasir Ris 8.
Yes.
So this project sold 85% of its inventory on the first day.
Yes, this was July 2021. So previously, because I think during COVID, right? So 2020, the whole year, there was a lot of pent-up demand, and there were a lot of instances where we couldn't physically see the show flat because of all the lockdowns and things and whatnot. And then I think over that period of time, there's a lot of pent-up demand whereby people couldn't really... when show flats started to open up and things like that, I guess they decided they all wanted to chiong to buy something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, people, first buyer can buy, as low as 1,500 per square foot.
Yes.
But some people paid up to 2,000 per square foot just on the same day.
Yeah, it was crazy. So within the same day, the developer actually increased the price by 600 per square foot. And I remember I brought a buyer down to queue at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And then I had to tell her that, look, the price is now 2,000 PSF compared to the start of the day, which was much lower. And we decided to just walk away from the purchase. Yeah.
Good choice on hindsight.
Yeah, a lot of hype. Yeah, so another reason why I think projects nowadays, most of them are also doing very well, is because of this GFA harmonization. So we have touched on this in our previous video on GFA harmonization. So for example, Emerald of Katong versus Tembusu Grand, which is just next door. One is harmonized, which is EOK, and then Tembusu is not harmonized. So for the kind of, for the same kind of pricing, for Tembusu, right, you can get a 4-bedroom, but the transaction was about 3.2 to 3.5 over million.
Because of the sizing also lah. The sizing was
Yes,
1432 square feet, non-harmonized.
Yes, correct. For EOK, you can get one more extra study at 2.7 to 2.8 plus.
Yes, 1152 square feet, of course, smaller on paper, but it's of course harmonized. They really made sure that you get a lot more for the square footage. Yeah. So the average price, I think, it started from around 2.7 mil. Of course, went up to 2.8, 2.9 mil. But it's easy to see why, from a content basis, it sold so well.
Yes, exactly. And even for that, right, 2.5, Tembusu Grand 3 plus study, that time 1173 square feet, people were paying 2.5 to 2.7 plus million, which is potentially what you could have gotten at EOK for a 4 plus study. So you can get one extra bedroom entirely. Yeah, so it's a very clear comparison because these two are just side by side. It's also one reason why the quantum makes it more affordable these days. And if you are in the market, then you would be able to tell the difference. So lastly, of course, not forgetting amenities and convenience. I think Singaporeans in general, they just really, they don't mind paying more for their convenience.
For sure.
That's all I can say. Yeah,
that's why all these integrated or mixed developments, right, all sold really, really well. So of course, Pasir Ris 8, we touched about that just now. We also had the Reserve Residences launch that was 2 years back. This one also sold really well, even though at that time, people felt that the pricing at 2,500 per square foot onwards was quite expensive for Beauty World area. Yeah, and of course, eventually, Reserve had units transacting more than 3,000 for the more premium collection. But that's the pricing people were willing to pay for convenience. And last year, we had Parktown Residence launch. And suddenly, no one knows where Tampines North is. But suddenly, when Parktown Residence launched, everyone wants to buy Parktown because it's the first and only integrated in Tampines area. So Tampines North area specifically. And also, that's where the Cross Island line will eventually come up as well.
So all these integrated developments, you can see on launch day, they are selling 70, 80 over %. So it is a true testimony that people don't mind paying for convenience and integrated developments in general. Okay, so what about those that they actually sell out on launch day?
So these are the ones that don't make the headlines. So now we talk about the ones that always make the headlines, sell 90%, 80% on launch day. And now we'll actually talk about why some don't sell very well and whether it's possible to still buy or not.
Correct. So firstly, I think for one reason that some of the projects actually took longer to sell is because of timing. I think with previously when they introduced the new cooling measures, that was back in 5th July 2018, whereby they actually increased the stamp duty for across all categories by 5%. And they also reduced the LTV from 80 to 75%. So I think that had a huge impact on the market because for now, for example, for every 1 million, you have to pay extra $50,000 in terms of the stamp duty. And it also reduces your purchasing power by another 50,000.
Correct. That means that 50,000 now you fork out cash on CPF to pay for the amount.
So if there's 2 million or 3 million, then respectively, the amount of holding power and the cash outlay that you need to have is way higher. So that could reduce the quantum that you can actually afford or actually put off your whole purchasing plans because last time you can actually buy, for example, but now suddenly you're being shortchanged by a lot.
In fact, last time I have clients who don't mind paying 7% ABSD.
I also had clients and initially I was quite shocked. This person actually okay to buy my unit with extra ABSD.
7%. Then it became 12%. Now it's 20%.
Yes, and for your third property is 30%.
So it's all relative terms. Last time it's considered, it was acceptable. Now I don't think many people actually go and pay the 20%.
It's tough. I mean, sometimes we really ask clients, do you want to buy another one? Or I mean, not like they don't want to, but it's just too much cash
for sure.
Things that they need to so it's not as easy these days. The projects that actually launched after the cooling measures, they actually took a toll. For example, for Florence, this was after the July 2018 measure, so it was in March 2019. So for Florence, we have a total of about 1,400 over units on launch day.
Only 54 units sold for a 1,400 unit project. This was Logan's, the Chinese developer, their first project in Singapore, and this is their turnout on the first day. Can you imagine how shocking it is? All the effort to put in marketing for the project, 2-week review, everything, sell only 54 units.
Yes.
So probably if you're an owner who bought one of the 54 owners, you feel a bit like, did I make the right decision or not?
Yeah, I heard that the first person who walked in eventually didn't even buy and then they walked out.
Yeah, not surprised lah.
Yeah.
Happens.
So, I mean, if you look at the crowd compared to the actual number of units transacted, if I were the developer, I would also be scared lah, seriously.
Yes,
so many inventory to clear off. If not, the developers will also be subjected to ABSD for
That's
the
right.
unsold units. Yeah. Second reason, I feel, for projects that took longer,
Yeah.
I mean, of course, some of them, they're actually not very near amenities.
Compared to the other integrated projects.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So I think in general, this project not so sexy lah. Yeah. In a sense, like, you can't really say like it's near MRT, near amenities and all this. So for example, Florence Residences is right in the middle of Hougang and Kovan.
Yep.
Right at the center. This is former Florence Regency. This was an en bloc project lah.
Yeah.
I think it was the same for Key Residences. Yeah, Key Residences is a 999-year leasehold plot, also former project en bloc, and only 22% sold on launch day.
Yep.
Yeah. Then we also had Dairy Farm. Botany at Dairy Farm. 48% on launch day actually not too bad lah, but it's not like headline, 80%, 90%
Yes.
kind of turnout. Yeah, these projects share similar qualities lah,
Yep.
Not really very near major amenities, not near major transport. So not at first glance a project that buyers will want to jump in for.
I mean, if you're talking about distance and proximity to MRT, if you're looking at Florence, do a quick Google search, Google Map search, I think you're talking about taking a public transport also take around 13 minutes. And then if you walk, that's more than 15 minutes walk, which I think in Singapore, majority people don't want to walk under the hot sun. Then for Key, also, sorry, this is a bit skewed, but I think if you want to take public transport, also about 21 minutes to hit Clementi, MRT and the mall. And then for Botany, it's also about a good 40 minutes walk to Hillview MRT. If you take a public transport, it's faster. It depends on the timing of the bus.
Yeah.
So now we touch on, is it necessarily bad per se to buy or invest in those developments that take longer to sell?
So this is actually a graph of the price trend for Florence Residences when they launched in 2019 and up to now. So I think we can see the price growth lah. So when if you're the first 54 buyers who bought Florence Residences, you would have bought around 1,400 to 1,500 per square foot.
Yeah.
Then of course, over time, as the market got used to the cooling measures, right? And also as the land bid prices in that time also went up, units started to sell. And when units start to sell, developers will slowly start to increase the price to get more profit margin. Yeah, so I think we saw like 2020 it went up to 1,005, 2021, 1,006. This is like the few range of times the developer increased price. Yeah.
Yep. And I think towards the tail end, it even crossed 1,007.
Yes.
So that's over 300 PSF difference from the buyers who actually bought at launch day. So I guess the 54 buyers who actually made their purchase during launch, they must be...
Yeah, vindicated lah.
yeah. Well, so is it really... Do we still consider Florence a good buy, for example?
Yeah, so at that time, Hougang Central's mixed integrated plot, right, was also something that a lot of people were looking forward to, but didn't know exactly when it would launch for sale. Yeah, and then now the answer is here already lah, because this land bid was already won last year.
Jan this year, apparently.
Start of this year.
Yep.
So obviously, you can see the land price. Okay, the land price was bid at 1,179 per square foot per plot ratio, and this is for Hougang lah. Of course, after they do all the They have to settle the integrated component, the mall component. They're not going to sell at the average profit margin. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So potentially it could be even higher than 2.4 to 2.6 lah.
Yeah. Maybe 2.4 to 2.6 average, but some units will definitely hit probably 2.7. Thereabouts for more premium facings. Yeah.
And if you look at Florence, we still have in the resale market, the units are transacting at around 1,008 per square foot nowadays. There is definitely going to be a gap of around at least 600 to 800 PSF difference. Of course, Hougang Central is right at the Hougang Mall and MRT. But let's say if you're talking about, if you have a certain quantum that you want to stay within, for example, Florence is still a relatively new project and you can get it at a way lower quantum.
That's right.
So next we have Key Residences. I think same thing. At the start, developer was pricing at about 1,781 PSF.
Yes.
And at the point in time, I mean, for a 999-year leasehold development, it's almost as good as freehold, and it's in a pretty prime location.
Yeah, Sunset Way lah.
Yeah.
So I think per square foot basis, at the time 2020, 1,700 per square foot actually is a fair price. But the fact that you have to walk in so deep inside Sunset Way, around 1.2 km, not very, in the eyes of most typical buyers, it's not a very attractive proposition lah. Yeah. But of course, 1,007, as we see along the launch, it went up. Developer increased price a few times. And then for the higher floors, I remember gap between low floor to high floor could have been as high as 250 to 300K gap for the same stack, different level. Yeah, eventually, of course, we see the prices towards TOP hit 2001, 2002. So that's really quite a difference.
Yes. I mean, from the start, 1,007 to 2,122, that's like 400 over per square foot difference from launch day. So I think if you were the buyer who actually entered right at the start, right? And then you're fearing that, wow, only 22% of the units were sold. Did I buy in a not so good project, for example?
Yeah.
Then actually now if you look back, you'll be like, wow, luckily I bought this.
Yeah, and then we
Earlier,
have to
man.
examine why suddenly the prices have been were more palatable and why the demand started to grow also. Because
correct.
as the project launched, right? Actually, when the project launched, it was already known that there will be a road plan to cut across from Clementi Road to cut the distance to reach key residences. But I think when we say it during launch, people cannot really
Cannot visualize.
Cannot picture.
Yeah.
So as they started to construct the road, you see, it was quite visible when it was launched. The pathway was being built already. Then people started to realize, now when I drive in, the distance is going to be cut more short. Plus also at the same time, the government announced plans for the Cross Island Line.
Correct.
Yeah. So specifically, right, this is actually the Cross Island Line where Maju MRT will form. Obviously not next to key residences, but next time when you walk out from the new road to go to Maju MRT, roughly is around 500-600 meters. Still considered within walking distance.
Yeah, then there's one stop to Clementi MRT, so that's actually very convenient. I think, with all these in mind, before the announcement of the Cross Island and things like that, developers were already slowly inching up their prices to sort of like, as market prices also went up. Land prices also went up. They also increased their prices. Then with the announcement of this Cross Island Line thing, right, the Maju MRT coming up, that pushed prices even more. So I think all in all, net, after the first day and everything, towards the tail end, people were like paying prices that are way higher, and also eventually the project sold out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So this one is the launch of Sterling Residences.
Yes.
So one of the projects that launched on the cooling measures day. We have to talk about it in relative terms because Sterling Residences is actually a big project. There's 1,259 units.
Yeah, 3 towers.
So by percentage basis, right, when they actually sold around 200 units on the first day. Yeah. So by percentage terms, of course, it's not big percentage, but if you talk about it in the whole terms, right, when the first day when they actually launched, suddenly also, average price then was around 1,700, 1,800 per square foot, thereabouts. A lot of people were saying, wow, I rushed in to buy on the cooling measures day. Did I make the right decision or not? Queenstown is a very prime location. This plot specifically, right, is actually just about 3 minutes walk from the MRT, and it's also set back a bit inside from Sterling area, so it does not get the MRT noise that Queen's Condo or Commonwealth Towers also gets. So I think also after the first day launch, developer actually increased price straight after the first day. That's something I remember very clearly. People got used to the cooling measures, still started to come in. Then you can see how the prices increased over the years. Yeah. So you see from 2018 until 2021, the jump was actually around 300 per square foot. Slightly over also. Yeah. So you can imagine if you're one of the 200 buyers who bought during launch day. Yeah, you'll be very happy. In fact, I had a 4-bedder owner who bought their 4-bedder in Block 21 because they only launched those 2 towers during launch. They bought their 4-bedder at 2.2 million. 1 year later, when the developer released Block 23, they launched the same 4-bedder at $400,000 higher.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So this is the effect that some developers will have in place for especially the bigger projects when there's bandwidth to increase price.
Yeah, I think also if we rewind back, I think back in 2018, 1,007 was not a really widely accepted PSF in the market. People were thinking that it's very expensive.
Yeah, because you could get Queen's Condo for 1,200 per square foot. Yeah. So maybe relative terms wasn't very attractive. But if we see what prices are today, Sterling has already hit 2,600 per square foot.
That's
and we
crazy.
had Penrith launched recently. Penrith already hit 3,000 per square foot.
That's crazy, right? If you just rewind a few years back, you're getting Sterling at 1,007, and now Penrith has already crossed 3,000 per square foot.
Yeah, so nuts.
Nah, it's crazy. So are there still existing good deals out there in terms of like projects that have not sold out fully? I think we have one here. It's Bloomsbury Residences, which we feel that is relatively still a good buy in the market. On the initial launch day, they only sold about 25%. And then now they are already more than 80% sold. So there are still a handful of units available, if you're looking.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is find projects with a similar theme with entry price perspective and also maybe transformation.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so Bloomsbury as of now is about 80% sold already. Still some balanced units, but we actually have one upcoming one next door only.
Yes.
Yeah. It's called Hudson Place Residences, which is Media Circle Parcel A, also bought by the same developer. So Qingjian won Bloomsbury and they also won Media Circle. And they managed to win Media Circle Parcel A at a lower land price of 1,037 per square foot. per plot ratio. Whether they sell cheaper than Bloomsbury, if you're the same developer, I don't think I'll shoot myself in the foot lah. So, but nonetheless, right, for a RCR plot, it's a very good land price to start with. Yeah, potentially probably we'll see pricing from maybe 24 to 25. And seeing now that we have binary residences at Tampines West, far in the OCR, gonna launch around 24, 25, 26. This plot here, I will say, has potential lah. Especially seeing that One North has a very big transformation story. There are around 8 plots similar to Bloomsbury and Hudson Place. Commercial on the first story and residential plots. So land bids could go higher also.
So I think if you can still enter into Bloomsbury, may not know, because if let's say Hudson Place, the results are really well, for launch day, I think developers may also price it higher than Bloomsbury lah.
Yeah, but we'll see. Yeah, we have to. You have to. At the end of the day, you have to put your check and try at least to see the pricing first.
Then we also have Canberra Crescent Residences, which we feel that is relatively a good buy in today's context. Of course, it's not as near to the MRT as certain other developments, which is why one of the reasons why we only saw 40% sold on launch. But if you're looking at the average PSF now, it's about 1,009.
Price point actually looks good. It's very unheard of in today's market actually to have it for 1,009.
Yeah, so later we'll explain why. As of now, it's around 84% sold, so we still have a handful of units available as well. So I think 1,009, almost 2,000 PSF for a brand new private development is actually very, very attractive. Why? Is because if you compare to something of similar location, say Woodlands Drive 17, for this, the GLS, the land was purchased at 781 PSF per plot ratio, and that is an EC plot.
Senja Close will also have EC launching, 771 per square foot per plot ratio. By the way, Revel EC price list just released 2 days ago, and EC will cross $2,000 per square foot.
And seeing the response for Revel, I'm pretty sure that they will be transacted lah.
And these Woodlands EC plots are actually a bit higher than Revel.
Land price.
We'll probably see Woodlands EC 2,000, 2,100 per square foot in the next few months.
So today, if you can still enter Canberra at about 2,000 PSF at this kind of pricing, this is what you're going to be paying for the ECs that are upcoming. So it's considered, that's why we feel that Canberra has relatively a good buy in today's context lah.
That's right. So Nara Residences, this one also quietly launched start of this year lah. So the Sen also launched in December, also had a similar
response,
turnout. So 25% sold, that was in February this year, and average per square foot was at 2,180 PSF. Obviously, not the best turnout. If you're a buyer of this 25% of units, maybe you might have the same thoughts of people who bought Florence residences at that time as well. Did I make a right decision buying when there's still 75% inventory left? As of context now, there's balance around 75% of the units. A lot of them are actually in the 2-bedder to 4-bedder component. So now actually we have to examine why Nara Residences didn't sell very well. Right? So of course on paper is yet another land bid in Dairy Farm. Because recently we also had Botany, we had Dairy Farm Residences, and this is a plot that's not say very near the MRT as well. In fact, as mentioned earlier, it's about an 18-minute walk to Hillview MRT. In
the vicinity of Nara, we actually have Dairy Farm Residences, which is the one with the mall, and then Botany, which just collected keys recently. If we compare that, right, of course, Dairy Farm or TOP in 2024, this one is this year. For Nara, expected is 2030, so it will be at least a good maybe 4 to 6 years difference compared to the recent launches. And do bear in mind that the previous 2 developments are non-harmonized, and their average PSF is around 1,008, and for Botany is around 2,000. For Nara right now, we are averaging around 2,001 PSF.
For harmonized project. So the key selling point is that actually Nara will be the first harmonized project in this vicinity. And at the per square foot, that's not too far from what Botany is transacting for now in the sub-sale or resale market. I think the key point here is that you can buy something new, harmonized for close to the current resale transacted price.
But some people may have their own reservation in terms of what's the potential for Nara, especially when there are already a few plots there and there are more upcoming. And there are also existingly older resale developments in the same vicinity.
So for Nara Residences, I won't say that this is the first project where the project you have in mind where I want to flip after the 4 years. Because it's a very own state oriented area. This is after Dairy Farm, Botany, there's also the other projects here like Eco Sanctuary, Treehouse, all the older ones. This probably we have to wait for more land bids that will launch at a higher price that will eventually also raise the land prices in the area. And I think the first indicator would be the EC at Senja. As mentioned earlier, they're also going to launch, the land price also around 770 per square foot. They are probably going to launch EC in Bukit Panjang and also 1,009 to 2,100 per square foot harmonized as well.
Yeah.
So when that launches at the third quarter of this year, then Nara Residences, you see the units start to move for
Correct.
sure.
And I feel that developers will also take that into consideration. So they will probably increase their prices along the way as well. If today you are looking at Nara and you're undecided, it's also good to really look into that, comparing with what you'll potentially be paying for a few months down the road. Yeah. So in conclusion, we feel that for sell-out projects, it doesn't necessarily mean it's always good. I mean, when it hit the resale market, we do see a different kind of market demand compared to like launch day. For launch, it can be overly hyped, for example, due to the timing or certain attributes of the developments which we mentioned earlier. But then when it hit the resale market, we may not always see the same kind of performance.
Or also, you don't want to fall into hype too much. Like if a buyer of Pasir Ris 8, you go and buy at 2,000 per square foot on the same day when the same downstairs neighbor buy at 1,500, 1,400.
Yes, that's why when you hit the sub-sale or resale market, your neighbors who bought at 1,400, 1,500, they easily exited at 1,900, 2,000, 2,001. But when you have entered at 2,000, you probably need a longer holding time in order to make that kind of same or similar profits. For slower selling projects, it's also not necessarily all bad.
Yep.
We have seen many examples which we've mentioned earlier, like Florence, Sterling, Key Residences, and plenty of other developments like Treasure, so on and so forth. There are still good non-sell projects out there in the market. They are of considerably good value. You just need to keep your eyes open. If you need any info, you can always let us know. We are always up to date.
Lastly, you can't always time the market. I think most importantly, in all periods, the examples we've shown, actually every year there are projects with good opportunities. It's just a matter of, the life stage of the project, has the developer actually increased price exorbitantly? Is there potential for growth? Yeah, these are the few questions we need to look at.
That's all we have for today. Thanks for watching. And if you like our content, do remember to like and subscribe.
Yeah.
We'll see you in the next one.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.